Hi, this is King Mob, and I'm still on the telly. And this week's like a CSI thing, CSI Shepherd's Bush, I guess, because we're looking at the grisly corpse of Top of the Pops. And dodgy DJs, men dressed in pantomime costumes, greedy record pluggers. There was some ants in there as well. Anyway, that's Lovely Adam, who later on became king of the Top of the Pops, really, as we shall find out. That was before Top of the Pops, his great Top of the Pops stuff. That was Press Darlings. Now, Top of the Pops, 2,000, and so 2,236 episodes every Thursday night from 1964. A weird kind of thing. In the beginning, it wasn't that big a deal. There was quite a lot of pop music on the telly. Top of the Pops didn't dominate everything. It was just a nice show. And in the beginning, they only played the top 20. This one made the top 20. There you go. That's Mick and the boys raving along like that. And it's fabulous. That, of course, wasn't on Top of the Pops because it was saucy. And as we shall see as we go along, well, I'll mention it now. I mean, for a show that was really a disgusting, vulgar cabaret, to be brutally honest, for them to be iffy about things like Frankie Goes to Hollywood or, Let's Spend the Night Together was just ridiculous. I mean, one of the DJs, the main DJ, was Jimmy Savile. What more can I say? Guys and gals, the guy was a horror. But actually had a lot to do with Top of the Pops. before Top of the Pops, charts were dictated by tracks that were played on jukeboxes, popular tracks. If you'd hear it on a jukebox, you'd go and buy it. Plus, record stores had booze, so you could pop in and listen to the latest releases and find out what you buy. You had 208, Radio 208, Radio Luxembourg, and that was on at night. But Radio Luxembourg was a bit iffy because they played a heck of a lot of records from the Decca label for no apparent reason, except that money had passed hands. And by the way, Saville was a big part of that. He had a show there, which is a kind of top 20 show. And it was out of that they decided to do Top of the Pops. So Saville was the first DJ. Start with a horror, you'll get horrors. Speaking of horrors, this isn't really a horror. This is the Amen Corner with Bend Me, Shape Me. Actually, it's not. It's the lovely Steve Marriott with Shalala Lee, but it's the same vintage. So the real warpage started in 1967. They'd had the pirate radio stations broadcasting all over, and they were playing all kinds of stuff that you would not hear on the light program of the BBC. They had a top 20 show each week, but this was all sporadic, and people are now used to music everywhere, and there just wasn't. There were only a few places you could hear music. So when Top of the Pops clicked in with Radio 1, that's when the Unholy Alliance started. That's when all of those DJs became smug and arrogant, and the show became a bit of a horror. But you could still get cool stuff on it, even as the years went by. And I'll never forget seeing, I think the first Motown act I ever saw on the television was the Four Tops. In some ways, not the best of the Motown acts. I mean, they couldn't dance like the Temps, and they didn't move like Marvin Gaye and sing and play. But they did have one really big thing, and that was the vocals of Levi Stubbs.
It's just
So that's Top of the Pops through the 60s, just another pop show, really. But by the time it gets to 1970, things get really warped and really weird. They expand to have a top 30 rather than a top 20. That gives them some play, and it gives them some kind of weird management of what became the Top of the Pops Radio 1 deal. Because outside of the top 20, you didn't really sell a lot of records. But if you sold enough to just get in that top 30, that could, if the guys that decided these things chose, to get you on Top of the Pops. At that point, a ticket on Top of the Pops is a ticket to instant fame if you're a pop star. And everything starts to warp because Top of the Pops becomes so big. And acts start to actually construct their acts and their stage shows and their music and their whole persona around Top of the Pops appearances. This had a weird effect, and it meant that, like 1970, Led Zeppelin their second album was number one in America and number one in Britain. But Top of the Pops moved on towards this weird UK-centric type thing. And out of this strange warpage came one other real horror that I can't get around, and I won't. And here's a guitar blend. Man, that is a weird record, but you know what? It's very powerful. That track's really got something going on. What that is, I'm not quite sure, but it's got something going on. Now, it wasn't intended to be Gary Glitter. That wasn't the idea. The idea was that they would just make this record. This was like a producer's record, really, and then Paul Gadd, who had been around as a loser in the 60s, not making it. I mean, one of the interesting stories about the 70s is that a lot of people who had either not made it in the 60s or been backroom people, like Carole King, and watched Neil Diamond, songwriters, and watched other people soak up all the attention, decided to get themselves in the game. And story of the 70s is quite heavily based on a lot of 60s losers that really just wanted to, reclaim territory. And that's what Paul Gadd did and created the monster that we know to be Gary Glitter. This is tricky stuff because the man was obviously a horror. And but like Roman Polanski is got these kind of problems, but people still watch Chinatown, and it's a great movie. I mean, you can go back to Gauguin and, appropriating South Sea ladies for his art plus sex life. Still like his paintings. It gets very, very tricky. Mind you, there is a weird link-up between Adam Ant, who we had earlier, and Gary Glitter. The whole performance ethic, the two drummers, the crude, powerful rhythm sound. Anyway, Adam also had a touch of that glitter about him. And if they show us disrespect, we tie them up and fail them. Often in a low degree and often in a steel. They make you off the plank alone or haul you around the keel. Jolly Roger, Hoister, Jolly Roger, Hoister, Jolly Roger. It's your money that we want, and your money we shall have. I'm the dandy hive of a New York too scared to mention. I spend my cash on looking. See what I mean? Gary Glitter, Adam Ant. Two acts that specifically really couldn't have existed without Top of the Pops. And strange enough, two acts that didn't really translate into the world market. I mean, I was singing mid-70s with Ginger Baker and the Baker Gurvitz Army, and we could play 20,000 people in Italy. We could play, 10,000 people in the States. We could play big without ever having a hit. Whereas acts like Gary Glitter, Sweet, Adam Ant, honestly didn't do much business outside the UK. So the Top of the Pops really skewed the whole thing. Having said that, I'm not critical of it because it produced some extremely strange and interesting mutations. Here's another Gary. There you go, Since to Infinity. When Chrissie Hynde turned up in Britain, she had she was talented, no doubt about that. But she looked at the scene, and interesting enough, the Pretenders figured themselves out how to work on Top of the Pops, and she knew that the show was kind of vulgar and brassy and loud and garish, and I suspect that this song is actually a little bit of a P-take of the whole Top of the Pops thing, but then it was it on Top of the Pops, so sometimes lies turn out to be truth and fantasy turns out to be fiction. Welcome to the world of King Mob.
Such a drag to want something sometime. One thing leads to another, I know. Was a time I wanted you for mine. Nobody knew. You arrived like a day, passed like a cloud. I made a wish, I said it out loud. Out loud in a crowd. Everybody heard. 'Twas the talk of the town. It's not my place to know what you feel. I'd like to know, but why should I? Who were you then? Who are you now? Common labor by night, by day highbrow. Back in my room, I wonder that I sit on the bed and look at the sky. Up in the sky, how do you change like the talk of the town? Maybe tomorrow, maybe someday. Maybe tomorrow, maybe someday. You've changed your place in this world. You've changed your place in this world. Oh, but it's hard to live by the rules. I never could and still never do. The rules and such never bothered you. You call the shots and they follow. I watch you steal from a distance and go back to my room. You'll never know. I want you, but now he's the talk of the town. Maybe tomorrow, maybe someday. Maybe tomorrow, maybe someday. You've changed your place in this world. You've changed your place in this world.
That's a glorious piece of stuff. And I was just saying, I do know Chrissie a little bit, and but I still find her voice very, very sexy. Hi, Chrissie, if you're listening. But speaking of sexy, like those DJs, were just not sexy. I mean, never mind the horror of Seville. What about Dave Lee Travis? I mean, what was that man? Amusingly enough, Dave Lee Travis, at a certain point, he became like he was some sort of intellectual personality. They gave him a late-night show one time on the BBC. This is long forgotten. It only lasted for about 4 episodes. But those of us that saw it, it's etched in the memory. And the idea for the show was that DLT would be like a party. It was obviously one of these things cooked up in the back room at the BBC, and they go, yeah, well, let's have it like a party. So people just standing around with drinks, and DLT will move around and talk to people, and it'll all be fun. It'll be sort of, interview them. It was just dreadful. The guy didn't have a clue, and the whole thing was just awkward and fantastically embarrassing and whipped off so quickly. Didn't stop DLT being, huge DJ. Kid Jensen, nice guy, but not sexy. How about Noel Edmonds? Noel Edmonds is not sexy. He's very clever, though. He's a very ferrety, clever sort of man that manipulates. I mean, a lot of those DJs were manipulators, never mind Savile. Savile manipulated in his own way, but Noel Edmonds manipulated himself a kind of weird career in the BBC, doing other shows and eventually coming up with formats, and unfortunately somebody died on one of them, but we're not going to talk about that. But they got power. I mean, power was seething there. I mean, Tony Blackburn. I got to say something nice about Tony Blackburn, though, because he was a rubbish DJ always. And all that business with him cracking up on air and everything, like my girlfriend hasn't, and then she's run off with, I don't know, did she run off with his girl, Rodney Bewes or something? I don't know, but I mean, it's like I'm going to crack up here, and maybe I will, maybe I'll try that. Next week I'll do a King Mob crack up where I have some emotional crisis and tell you all about it, and then you can complain to Ben, and he can fire me, and that'll be it. DJs, too weird. But then they did introduce things that I have alluded to before, such as the shiny head of Errol Brown. Yeah, I forgot to say what was nice about Tony Blackburn, which is that when he got fired from the BBC, from Radio 1, he moved on to Radio London, and he just went back to core values. And I think the guy has always been a soul fan. And for about 3 or 4 years there, he used to run a nighttime show on Radio London, and he only played soul music, and he played really good soul music. And I used to listen to that show, and God bless you, Tony.
Yesterday
So, yeah, Hot Chocolate fitted right into that Top of the Pops primer. They had a look and a sound and innuendo, which never harms. And they had an unbroken run of hits produced by Mickey Most. And as my regular listener will know, I'm a big fan of Mickey Most as a record producer. And he must have had so many records on Top of the Pops that it's just unbelievable. Then we moving along, really, into the 80s, and we get another strange hybrid-type band, Dexys Midnight Runners. And they fit the pantomime element thing. The dressing up box is what we used to call it when I was a kid. And if you think about the dressing up box, I mean, even Madness slot into the dressing up box. Never mind Sweet, never mind the Rubettes, never mind Mud, never mind Gary, never mind either of the Garys, never mind Adam. The dressing up box was a big deal, and Kevin Rowlands and Dexys certainly put the clothes on from the dressing up box. But they covered, this is what I'm going to play you, is their cover of Van Morrison's song, Like Jackie Wilson Said. And it's a tribute to Dexys that I had completely forgotten that I knew that song originally by Van Morrison. I think it's from St. Dominic's Preview, and I remember the song. But in my head, I'd completely forgotten that, and I thought it was a Dexys song. It wasn't. But when they debuted the song on Top of the Pops, there was some slippage because the guys and girls who did the background visuals put in a picture of Jockey Wilson, the well-known darts player. Not cool. There he is doing that doobie-doobie thing. Anyway, I like that record. In my haste to move along with the show, because I've been trying to encapsulate 2,000 episodes into an hour is not easy, I had jump past Chris Spedding, and how could I do that? I mean, Chris Spedding in the 70s was a successful musician, and he'd just come out of a failed supergroup, and he got a hit with motorbiking. But then the follow-up record, which is actually not bad, they wouldn't play it. I think he got the top 30, but for some reason they fell foul of that, whatever little judgment thing was. But anyway, here's Jump in My Car. Just because Top of the Pops wouldn't play it doesn't mean King Mob won't, because we like Chris Spedding on the King Mob show.
Jump in my car, I wanna take you home. Jump in my car, it's too far to walk on your own. No thank you, sir. Come on now, I'm a trustworthy guy. No thank you, sir. Oh little girl, I wouldn't tell you no lie. I know your game. How can you say that? We only just met. She's got me there, but I'll get her yet. No, you didn't. I was catching my breath. And look, it's starting to rain. And baby, you'll catch your death. Ah, come on now, it costs nothing to try. And you'll arrive all nice and dry. Jump in my car, I wanna take you home. Come on, jump in my car. It's too far to walk on your own. Jump in my car, I wanna take you home. Come on, jump in my car.
Yeah, well, anyway, we like Chris Spedding. He's great, and it's a bit more Adam and the Ants.
Of all the pirates on the seas, the worst of them was Blackbeard. So damnable a beast from hell, he was the one they most feared. Any man who sailed with him was taking quite a chance. He'd hang them from the gallows just to see if they could dance. Ha ha! Presto, Jolly Roger. Presto, Jolly Roger. Presto, Jolly Roger. It's your money that we want, and your money we shall have. Presto, Jolly Roger. Presto, Jolly Roger. Presto, Jolly Roger. It's your money that we want, and your money we shall have. We're our family, a wild nobility. We are the family. We're our family, a wild nobility. We are the family. We're our family, a wild nobility. We are the family. When I'm standing here, looking at you, what I see, I'm looking straight through the side.
Well, there's still Adam giving it large. I mean, why not? For me, Adam Ant, I just, he beats Gary Glitter. He's the very spirit of Top of the Pops, is Adam Ant. He's what it's all about. On the other hand, and there is always another hand, there were Pan's People, or what did they become after Pan's People? Oh, Legs and Co. And these were girls that were kind of, I don't know, not that sexy in my opinion, but boy, men thought they were fantastic, and I'm just shutting the door. They're chatting in the back room here at Radio Lewes. The things that go on in this place. Anyway, Pan's People, Legs and Co., whatever. They would do this strangest dance routines, and I mean, it was excruciating. I mean, you just cry with laughter at the stuff that they did. But I mean, people thought they were sexy girls, and it was all cool, and it just wasn't. But I've I found this track. I mean, well, let's talk also about credibility. Because, like, Top of the Pops didn't really have credibility. It had power and appeal, and it could push you through. It wasn't really cred. Billy Joel was a very successful singer-songwriter of the middle-of-the-road type ilk. But everybody else was credible and featured in Rolling Stone magazine, and there were all these kind of hipster-type things that Billy just didn't get. Until he did, We Didn't Start the Fire. And he did one of those list records of, like, things that have happened and it seemed, like, important. And he got himself some vague credibility until they played the video on Top of the Pops. Behind Legs and Co. dancing to it. And I mean, I think one was dressed like Marilyn Monroe. Another one might have been dressed like Jackie Kennedy for a funeral. I mean, it did absolutely staggering mishmash of kind of sexy dancing plus historical events. We didn't start the fire.
Joe DiMaggio, Joe McCarthy, Richard Nixon, Studebaker, television, North Korea, South Korea, Marilyn Monroe. Rosenberg, H-Bomb, Sugar Ray, Pat Moon, John Randall, the King and I, and the Catcher in the Rye. Eisenhower vaccine, England's got a new queen, Marciano, Liberace, satire, and a goodbye. We didn't start the fire. It was always burning since the world's been turning. We didn't start the fire. No, we didn't light it, but we tried to fight it. Joseph Stalin, Alan Cobb, Nasser and Prokofiev, Rockefeller, Campanella, Communist Bloc. Roy Cohn, one for all, Toscanini, Dacron, Gin, Food Balls, rock around the clock. Einstein, James Dean, Brooklyn's got a winning team. Davy Crockett, Peter Pan, Elvis Presley, Disneyland, Bardo, Budapest, Alabama, Khrushchev, Princess Grace, Peyton Place, trouble in the Suez. We didn't start the fire. It was always burning since the world's been turning. We didn't start the fire. No, we didn't light it, but we tried to fight it. Little Rock, Pasternak, Mickey Mantle, Kerouac, Sputnik, Joe and I, Bridge on the River Kwai, Lebanon, Charles de Gaulle, California, baseball stock, weather, homicide, children of the little mite. Buddy Holly, Ben Hur, Space Monkey, Mafia, Hula Hoops, Castro, Ed's a no-go. U2, Sigmund Rhee, Payola and Kennedy, Chucky Checker, Psycho, Belgians and the Congo. We didn't start the fire. It was always burning since the world's been turning. We didn't start the fire. No, we didn't light it, but we tried to fight it. Hemingway, Eichmann, stranger in the strange land, Dylan, Berlin, Bay of Pigs invasion, Lawrence of Arabia, British Beatlemania, Ole Miss, John Glenn, Liston Beats, Patterson, Pope Paul, Malcolm X, British politician, sex, JFK, blown away. What else do I have to say? We didn't start the fire. It's always burning since the world's been turning. We didn't start the fire. No, we didn't light it, but we tried.
I'm sorry, but I have to stop it. JFK blown away. What am I going to say? Hemingway, Eichmann, hula hoops. I mean, look, Billy, you're just not Bob Dylan. That's just. But anyway, look, it's a wonderful chorus, and who could forget the dance performance? So it's all marvelous. But I'm going to move right along to. Oh, I know, the Pet Shop Boys, who were, an interesting act. Except if anybody's ever noticed out there, there was an actor around called Al Stewart in the late 60s, early 70s, and he did a thing called Year of the Cat, had some American success. And as soon as I heard the Pet Shop Boys, I was like, that's Al Stewart. You know, Al Stewart's bought a synthesizer. And the singer in the Pet Shop Boys, his voice and his phrasing and even kind of some of the lyrical content is so similar to Al Stewart. Anyway, credit the Pet Shop Boys because it's a great sound that they get. And they did create one fantastic moment for Top of the Pops with Dusty Springfield. They teamed up with Dusty, which was a nice marriage of like late 80s, early 60s thing. They must have grown up looking at pictures of Dusty like I did. I think I've said before, I had pictures of Dusty Springfield on my wall when I was like 12 as a pin-up. I didn't realize that was kind of inappropriate at the time for a variety of reasons. But they made this great record, and if I remember, the performance is that they played in the studio, but Dusty's bit was like on a film, so she came in. Anyway, here's Alan Titchmarsh to tell you all about it.
Pop's most successful duo, thanks to the miracles of modern technology. Here performing their 1987 hit, What Have I Done to Deserve This? Along with Dusty Springfield, Pet Shop Boys.
You always wanted a lover, I only wanted a job. I've always worked for a living. How am I gonna get through? How am I gonna get through? I come here looking for money, got to have it, and end up leaving with love. Now you've left me with nothing, can't do it. How am I gonna get through? How am I gonna get through?
I brought you drinks, I brought you flowers, I read your books and talked for hours. Every day, so many drinks, such pretty flowers. So tell me, what have I done to deserve this? What have I done to deserve this? What have I?
Since you went away, I've been hanging around. I've been wondering why. I'm feeling down. You went away. It should make me feel better, but I don't know how I'm gonna get through. How I'm gonna get through.
You always wanted me to be something I wasn't.
You always wanted too much.
Now I can do what I want to forever. How am I gonna get through? How am I gonna get through?
At night the people come and go, they talk too fast and walk too slow. Chasing time from hour to hour, I pour the drinks and crush the flowers. What have I done to deserve this? What have I done to deserve this? What have I?
Since you went away, I've been hanging around. I've been wondering why. I'm feeling down. You went away. It should make me feel better. I don't know how I'm gonna get through. How I'm gonna get through.
What have I done to deserve this? What have I? We don't have to fall in love. We don't have to fight. We don't need to go to hell every night. What have I? We can make mistakes.
Well, we leave that strange hybrid wailing away in the background, and getting close to the end. I've got a couple more tracks to play you. People I haven't, even scratched the surface of. Dave D, Dozy, Beaky, Meek and Titch. Mark Bolan, Blondie. I mean, I'm missing, so many acts that I'm going to play you missing, which is by Everything by the Girl. And I really love this song. It's I play it in my solo sets, and I love it. And also, this was inappropriate. Tracy Dawn on Top of the Pops was just inappropriate. She's just like a real, proper girl, not like some created, made-up, mad thing. And when she was on Top of the Pops, she just looked so sweet.
I step off the train, I'm walking down your street again, and past your door, but you don't live there anymore. It's years since you've been there, and now you disappeared somewhere, like out of space. You found some better place, and I miss you, like the deserts miss the rain, and I miss you, oh, like the deserts miss the rain. And could you be dead? You always were 2 steps ahead of everyone. You walk behind while you would run. I look up at your house, and I can almost hear you shout down to me, where I always used to be. And I miss you, like the deserts miss the rain. And I miss you, like the deserts miss the rain. I'm back on the train. That's why did I come again? Can I confess? I've been hanging around the old address, and the years have proved to offer nothing since you moved. You're long gone, but I can't move on, and I miss you. Oh, like the deserts miss the rain, and I miss you. Yeah. Like the deserts miss, I miss you. I step off the train, I'm walking down your street again, past your door. I guess you don't live there anymore. It's years since you've been there, and now you've disappeared somewhere, like out of space. You found some better place, and I miss you. Yeah, and I miss you. You found some better place.
So do I miss Top of the Pops? Actually, in a strange way, I do. I was never really a fan. It was a weird cabaret show, like a potpourri. You'd get Clive Dunn with Grandad, then you'd get like some heavy rock group, and then you'd get Boney M, where they didn't even sing, they were just dancers. But I kind of miss it. But who killed it? Because it stinks now. It's just a dead thing. It's just a corpse out there, and who killed it? My opinion, greed. Round about the time that the internet started to buzz in the 90s, and free music, that idea became acceptable to some degree. Record companies would not budge from trying to sell CDs, which were costing them best part of 15p at £15. And by that point, I'd left the record industry proper and moved into applied music. But I still knew people in the record business, and I said, you can't keep doing this. You can't just keep charging money like this. You know, you've got to bring your prices. No, we don't. The audience will stay. Well, they didn't. They just went away. They drifted off. And we lost something like Top of the Pops, which was the kind of target point. It gave you, you know, who's happening, here's a new act. I mean, some of these acts that I've played you today, not Chris Spedding, of course, but some of them just appeared on Top of the Pops and was just launched from nowhere to legend overnight. Overnight, you could turn up on that show, and there's nothing that happens like that now. I mean, if you're an overnight sensation on the X Factor, you've forgotten about it in 2 days. So greed killed Top of the Pops. Record companies killed Top of the Pops. Not actually horrible Radio 1, and not kind of generally stupid BBC. R.I.P. Top of the Pops. Next week, I'm going to get modern. I'm going to do some modern telly. So throwing the past in the biscuit, or the basket, or the box. Here's Adam Ant again to kiss us off. Bye now.
The press darlings, the press darlings.
In days old when ships were poachers like the men who sailed them, and if they showed us disrespect, we'd tie them up and fail them.